Nobody, no one, and today we're going to talk about Bigfoot, the kidnapper. Dun 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 dun. uh, so before I start this, I just like to remind you that everything that I know is what I've read off internet books. I've a lot of my information also comes from YouTube's, from people like you and me. Okay, the stories that I find, I investigate them. I'm a very big Bigfoot enthusiast. Okay, but I want you to understand. I see Bigfoot as an animal. Period. Okay, I don't see Bigfoot as a spirit. I don't see him as an alien. I don't see him as anything else except an animal. An animal that we are trying to find. Most of my videos are like this. They're original, easy to make. The reason that I do these things is because my point has always been to inspire people on Bigfoot. Also, I am a legitimate investigator, and all that means is that I try to find as much information as I can and share it with people who are interested. So, with that being, Bigfoot has a reputation around some communities that he's a kidnapper. But I can tell you straight off, this is more fable than it is factual. Now, I know what you're saying. Bigfoot doesn't exist. La la la. Okay. But unfortunately, you're wrong because we found a gorilla. Okay, guys? So you can't really say that a 9 foot creature that can exist out there in the woods. Okay? So the question being is, why do I believe that Bigfoot is not a kidnapper? Well, most of the recorded information that we have are really stories, and they are known to be stories. Okay? Now, before I get into the whole situation that these are just stories, let us first find out why it is that most investigators of Bigfoot pretty much believe that Bigfoot is not a kidnapper. In fact, pretty much everybody who investigates Bigfoot, they say that he's not a kidnapper. Okay, and we see this because we have two very good animals that live with humans right now. We have the gorilla, of course, and we have the ape. And most of them are not kidnappers. Okay? Now there are stories that I will tell you right now. Yes, they have kidnapped children. Monkeys have kidnapped apes, have kidnapped, unfortunately, and eaten them. But it all has quite literally an explanation. So first, let's go with the native, okay? And we're gonna use the native first, then we're gonna use the Canadians, and then we're gonna use the Americans, okay? The natives have always concluded that Bigfoot was a curious creature, okay? But more unfortunate, they believe that Bigfoot saw also humans as food. Now, before you start questioning this, just remember that there are apes in Africa that do value meat. And there are apes who value the brain as a dessert. It is the high portion of eating. They eat other monkey brains, they eat the flesh of other monkeys. Okay? They're known for doing this. Now, a lot of the people who I talk with always ask the same question. It says, "Well, Bigfoot was, a spiritual animal." Well, no. Let's first see how we saw the gorilla in the beginning. Okay? And this is why it's very important to understand why it is that the natives saw it as a spiritual animal, just, and why people believe this. Okay, first, when we discovered the first before we discovered the gorilla, it was a myth. It was something that some people talked about and other people ignored. Okay, then we discovered that it was real. So then it became an inspiration. And now that we know that a gorilla exists and we're inspired to know it, we have a creature that is now spiritual to us. We want to save it. We want more of them. We have them in zoos. We have them in Africa protecting them. It has become a spiritual. Now just imagine if one day all this communication that we have, no more YouTube, no more TV, no more cell phones, stops. And they start saying, well, there used to be a creature we call the gorilla. Oh, it never existed. Oh, we've never seen it. Africans are telling us that they've never seen it. Some say yes, we see it. It's a myth. So just imagine that. Okay. So now let's go back to what we're at right now. Right now we're in a place where yes, it is a myth, but we're finding factual. And the more we study other animals, the more it becomes that hey, it can be a fact. So the natives saw it this way, and it makes sense. And that's why they believe that Bigfoot was not really a kidnapper. He valued meat. He valued the brains, unfortunately. He valued the curiosity of another creature that looked like him but was different. So let's go to the Canadians. Now, the Canadians were really funny about Bigfoot. The ones who claimed to see Bigfoot always claimed it as a hairy man. So they saw it as just a hairy man. By this time, they had heard the stories from natives. Most of them, amazing or not, most of them wouldn't even believe it. Even after seeing Bigfoot, they wouldn't believe it. They believed it was just a man on fur, with a lot of fur. That's what they saw it. Just another man. So, when the stories came about that hairy men, or Bigfoots, were kidnapping people, and it was women and children mostly. You have to understand that now looking back at it, it would make sense to kidnap the woman more. Why is this? Well, if you're an animal, you go after the weak species, okay? And the woman was always the weak species. She was the one who created the children, took care of them. So if you kidnap the child, you not only were kidnapping the child, you pretty much could kidnap the woman too, which makes sense in the animal kingdom. Now we've seen this a lot with other animals, even tigers and lions, and they kidnap others and sometimes even kill them to reproduce. Okay, now was this a reproduction thing? Most of the people, of the investigators, say no. This was mostly of curiosity, and it was mostly because a lot of the Bigfoot that came out stayed the same. So why kidnap the woman? Why kidnap the children if they meant nothing? Unfortunately, it goes back to the same thing. The woman was a weaker species. They were curious. Unfortunately, some women came back with stories, but the stories were always that he kept me, sometimes as just a trophy. Other times it was that they kidnapped the children and they just let them go. You know. So now we go into the American domination. And most of the Bigfoot stories on kidnapping always has to do the same. Okay? They kidnap a kid and they will let him go. Now there is once or twice that a kid would die, and they would blame it on Bigfoot. But the chances on that were always kind of slim because there were other genres for happening. Now, could this happen? Yes, of course it could happen. Okay, guys, we cannot count anything out. But what we can count on is that most of the stories were either stories of kids being lost, seeing this creature, running the wrong way, the different way, and finding humans. That is the most popular story you're going to find out there. You're going to find about kids who were lost and were crying and crying and crying, and then they just didn't hear him crying. And unfortunately, in the animal kingdom, if you're loud, you're going to get killed. You have to understand that the woods are survival. You start camping out, you start learning how to survive. Okay? So, unfortunately, if Bigfoot was a real kidnapper, we would have more evidence, more structure on it. Unfortunately, most of the stories that I have read are very fables, myths, very